Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Hope you're all doing well today. Get my sound out. See if this is gonna work. Yeah, I guess it's working. Just who's gonna show up and when? That's it. These things don't get put out there right away sometimes. So you try to just fiddle around for a few minutes before you get into the topic, but sometimes that's kind of impossible. So hello, men, and I'll do my go your own way. Go your own way. All your Simpsons from the past are forgiven. It's a good, nice Saturday night. Just got in a little while. I took my bath, my Saturday bath, and and tried to relax. And just I'm all jacked up on coffee, so going to sleep probably not a good idea. I'm trying to go to sleep. It's a nice day today. They said it was 60, 67 today, but I found it just, it just didn't add up to 67 the way I was feeling it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what I see in Mgtow, some of the things that happen. The men come in and we got our detractors and our dejectors. And, but there's one common thing that I see. They all have hope. They all have faith that the system as it was set up, believe in the system. The system works. And what system is the system of marriage and schooling and family and all those things. And they all have faith in that. And faith is pretty unwarranted sometimes. It comes down to hope. And hope, when you put it in the same room with statistics, it doesn't add up. And that's what we run into a lot of times. We know the statistics. Most MGTOWs know the statistics of marriage, and that's 86% failure rate from 20 to 34. Past data shoots up, and past data shoots up to about 92%. 8% of them say 8% of them say they made it. Made it to what? Made it to death with someone they can't stand being in a room with. So there's a lot of hope involved in that. But what is hope? What is that thing? When I think of hope, I think of poor people. I think of Simpson's paradox. I think of rich people. They want more. Poor people have hope. Poor people have faith that they'll be able to get to be in that thing that they aspire to be. And I guess that's what one thing that you would have to do is you have to aspire to have hope. You have to act upon hope. You have to desire this proposition that you're putting forth to obtain it. There has to be a good chance of obtaining hope too. A lot of times there's not a good chance of obtaining what is desired. There's precautions in the same way that, like in the bottom I wrote there, in the same way that precautions consist with acting, as were the case in some feared prospects. We talk about those feared prospects. So hope in consistence with acting as a desired proposal or a prospect. And then you got risk. You put hope and risk. And we talk about the risk a lot. But when I see these men come in, they're doing hope against the statistics and the risk. So hope and risk seem to be the same thing, don't they? There's precautions. There's precautions that you need to. There's feared. There's a reasonable amount of fear that this is whatever you've been proposed in any situation. We're not talking about marriage in this situation. We're talking about hope in any situation and a rational situation. What's the rational? What's the pragmatic situation of hope? Psychologically or physiologically, there's psychological issues when you're putting faith in something that you don't know because it's down the road, and that's a linear thing, and you're sort of self-rendering up hope in an irrational attitude about retrieving something in the future, and what is that thing that you'll be retrieving in the future. A look back on a happy life, everything worked out the way you planned it to work out. You know what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men, they go awry. You have to have a belief and a desire in it according to its ideas and whatever features you include in the ideas and the features you include in the ideas of a success. What would be success in that situation? We see a lot of guys come in and they're doing the marriage thing, and they're doing they're milling that over in their head. The Mgtow guys, hello Corey, hello Mr. Jones. They're milling that over in their head. Hope versus statistics, hope versus risk. They're trying to feed us this hope thing where they have hope and they've considered all the possibilities out there without considering the risk side. And we would go, well, that's quite unique. Please tell me about that hope. Or is this just merely possibilities that could happen? And a lot of the possibilities, what a lot of the possibilities are, that split V, that's the possibility of them getting and having the rest of their life, because that's what most people, most and will say, well, that's not a reason to get married. That's not a reason to have children. Your desires about that, about the wanting to figure everything out about that split V down there is unreasonable. And that's what we tell them as Mgtow. I ran upon this young man today. He was one of those Mgtows that he says Mgtow is poison. And I says, you're just coming around being casually cruel. And he says Mgtow is poison. And I says, well, being casually cruel is poison too. You understand that being casually cruel is poison, but you don't seem to understand what you said when you said Mgtow is poison. And what feature does Mgtow poison anybody? And there's no response. And it was just one of those, he was just trying to meme it and be funny, the non sequiturs they throw around nowadays, just to meme it up and be funny. There's a lot of possibilities inside of hope, and Dewey took a look at in pragmatism, and he wrote about what he thought about in that time in the modern era, which we call it now, not the postmodern era. There were conditions that was earnest effort. You had to make an earnest effort to achieve what you Dewey said in 1960. And he said the idea that at last was a sufficient basis of goodness in life, and the conditions so that by thought and earnest effort we may constantly make things better. He was talking about hope, about constantly making things better in our life. And I think that's what a lot of people see. They're taking these earnest actions based on information that they've got in the world, and it's not a very red pill thing, because we say we do skepticism now when most men get a certain age and they start realizing all this stuff that they taught you in school and in church and your parents and the way they treated you and the lies they told you that shelter you from the actual world. And that's all schools do now, is they shelter you from the actual world. And then you turn 18, you go to college or whatever you're chosen, whatever you choose to do in life, go in the military or something. You soon start finding out that the reality of life is a little different than what you were taught. Those people out there are crueler, and some of the things you see, I remember seeing when I went in the Army at 17, and I started seeing my first prostitutes out there. They bust them in by the busloads to the Army bases on payday. And I was like, wow, look at that. It was like, wow, I didn't know girls were like that. I'd never met one. Most of my life, I was sheltered against that. So it was a whole new aspect. And I would just rather I want to rent one just to talk to her and just figure out, well, why do you do this? And usually it was for money, and you start asking questions from them. It's probably your first time being around a woman out there that has some kind of idea about a prostitute. Would be a woman that has a good idea what life is about, and has a very good idea what she wants, and she hopes for things too, and she weighs up the risk of doing what she's doing, and that's what we do in life, and you learn a lot from them situations. But a lot of men go out there and they vaguely have any consciousness what the risk factors are, and that's where Mgtow comes in. There's this frank recognition of evil out there, and you have to really kind of see it to know about it, so you can remedy those things, so you don't walk in blindly into things. And naturalism, there's Dewey also says the object of hope is meliorism, and hope is like democracy. Hope is a simple political idea of ethics that hinge upon nothing more than persons, their values, and their actions. And those three things are kind of important. They're the person, who is the person, the values that they have, and their actions to put things forward into a moving process for hope in the future. They have hope that they can move through these things and get a desired result. But what is the desired result? You start weighing up the risk against that, and that's where it starts all falling apart. You can be blindly hopeful, and that's how I think I see. That's where I think I see a lot in the criteria men set up when marriage. They're blindly hopeful without without the physical possibilities of that failing. There's merely logical things to consider, and that's what we give them. There's probably logic. One of the logical things that 50-50 isn't true. That's a lawyer's view, a lawyer's perspective view on what he's seeing, not what's really in this world. We know that 92% is closer to the figures. Some of these guys that come around, they hope that they'll be that 8%. It gives them a challenge. They weigh up all the risk, and they say, this is the challenge. We will make it through. And she says, oh yes, we will make it through. And most of us find out that that's pretty much her just agreeing with you so you don't leave. and hope kind of fades away sometimes after a while, and there's nothing real or tangible. It's based on, it is a metaphysical thing, hope and faith, and that goes together. A lot of times when I talk to the Jesus people, there's how do you know there's a God? Well, you have to have faith, and faith is based on hope. And then you have to check the statistics. When was the last time that God was here? Has he ever been seen? Do we have an observation, a photograph, or anything? And then all those things start unwinding, detangling, and you start saying, well, the statistics on that, hope versus the stats, are pretty low. And you could have faith, and faith is blind, and I know faith is blind, but most logical men they'll weigh up these things, and they'll consider the possibilities that maybe someone's just trying to get you to believe something, so it puts your mind at ease. And a lot of people need their minds put at ease when it comes to touchy, sensitive subjects like death and why does this planet take children from us? And that's one of the things. And everybody we know is around you is going to die before you exit this world, pretty much. And everything you care about, everything you built, you'll get to watch go away, and everything. The world is absurd, and so we make up these this hope and add sense of the possibilities of something being real. Let me check back in the page and say hello. There's not too many people showing up on this Friday night. I'll keep it going a little longer, but let me see. Friday night, I'll keep it going. But if no one's going to show up, I won't actually stay on here long. So we weigh these things, and I think most people don't weigh them. I think there's an ignorance in weighing the risk against weighing the hope is the desired result to begin with. I mean, it's what you want. You hope to achieve what you want, and there will be obstacles. And most men are like, I'm ready to take on all those obstacles, and then I go, oh, there's a very slim chance, and then they'll put the obstacles aside, or they'll put the thought of the obstacles aside and take things on one by one as they happen. And that's always a good idea. That's the only thing you can do while continuously telling yourself that you have faith that this is going to work out. Sometimes that just doesn't work out in life, and there's no reason to keep going, and that's when we see the obvious results of divorce and stuff like that. And there's other questions and concepts and possibilities on that issue. There's other issues and other possibilities you can take on afterwards. I always say, when you realize something's not going to work, the hardest part for most men is to put it away and start something new. There's no other more logical possibilities that you can develop while you're doing this thing. Philosophical. I just read an article on philosophical faith, and they paid. There was a thing that they paid $530,000 for people to talk about philosophically about hope and what hope was, and no one could seem to agree about what hope. Political hope. You have political hope. There's pre-modern, post-modern philosophers, and religious hope and faith, and we all know about that stuff. And Hannah Dot makes a relative point about the human condition, and human beings allowed to make the beginnings in their actions and subvert the tendencies. How did she put it? The public space to degenerate routine behavior and naturality and stuff like that. And there's the necessary condition, a possibility of hope when you see these these political actions taking place. There's the possibility of hope in that thing. And as she went through the Eichmann trials, Hannah Ardant did, and she watched all the hope around her and realized that killing Eichmann was going to be so much less than what they all worked up in their head, that this evil was going to die with Eichmann. And then they all realized that there were 30,000 other little worker bees. And that's why I talk about the worker bees that are involved in this process, which we have in America, of the divorce court system. There's 30,000 little worker bees in Eichmann, and Eichmann wasn't really, he was just a guy up on top, so he killing Eichmann. But now you have to look, and that triangle comes down from there, and there's 30,000 people that stamped the stamps and moved it along, and none of them threw a wrench in it. None of them thought it was bad, and those people were equally as responsible. But I suppose each one of those persons, she says, there's the possibility of hope that this won't happen. There was always that possibility of hope that it wasn't going to go down that avenue. It was going to take an earnest avenue. And it really doesn't. And so there's a lot of things involved with hope, and they had faith in their Führer. Not too many people around today. Let me see, how long am I going? 20, 30 minutes. So we talked about, but what I see in Mgtow is I see a lot of the new Mgtows coming in, and you don't want to crush that hope. You don't want to crush that faith because in life, because that's the same thing that drives most men. You have to have a certain percentage of hope, that a reasonable amount of hope that you're going to succeed in this world. And I see with so many potheads and drug users and everything, that the hope has been sucked right out of them, and it's pretty nihilistic. They have an attitude of nihilism most of the time. Nothing's ever going to go right. This world is. We'll talk about existentialism. This world is absurd, and nothing makes sense. And you live, have fun, try to have fun in between. Most of the time, you're going to end up being suffered, and then you die, and that leaves not a lot of room for hope. And you don't want to crush these guys' hope, but you don't want to come back. I got to refocus myself. I can't move in the chair too much, or else the camera will lose my position. Hello, Pocket Aces. Hello, AP. 5:30. Hello, Brissy Boy. I've been just talking about hope versus the odds, and what I see with these guys. They have real hope when they come in that marriage thing, and I know that's what. There's the presupposition of faith in there that you've been told, and maybe you watched your parents, and maybe you didn't watch your parents and how miserable they made themselves, and maybe you're one of these boys. Blame it all on dad. He was never around. He was always at work. Blame it all on him. He was the jackass that I see a lot of that too. I just got to the part. I just read the part in Infinite Jest where Hal was having this thing, and Hal's father, Mr. Mgtow, was telling the story of his hopes and his dreams about being the tennis star, and it ended with him ruining his knees and sliding across a tennis court that was like sandpaper, and ripping the skin off. And he became a doctor and a salesman, and he was a doctor. I'm not sure what he was, a doctor salesman, a salesman with a doctorate. And he sold stuff, or he actually became a movie producer or something like that. And he had a lot of hope. He was hoping about being this tennis player, and everybody thought he was pretty good. He was the best and everything, till that moment where and he blamed it all on his father, and we get that a lot. And you can blame it all on your father and everything, but that doesn't do you any good. That was the point there. Hope. We all have hopes and dreams for something, but we have to weigh up the statistical possibilities of this happening against the risk. And hope is what I see a lot of those guys come in with. There's kind of this oblivious idea that this is just going to fall in order and everything's going to work out, because that's what the system, trust the system. It's going to work out. And you would think that better men than us before us have put together a system that wasn't such, it wasn't a system that was so unreliable. It wasn't a system that would go off. You can go off your tracks at any minute with one wrong decision. We see guys make wrong decisions all the time, and we know we're humans and we're fallible, and we start putting hope up there. Where's my hand at? Oh, it's over here. I never used to sitting here. And we know we're infallible, and one decision, one bad decision. I go over those decisions in my head. Why didn't I take that scholarship and run off to Baton Rouge, Florida, and go to the military school there at the time? And because I had split V, yeah, there was split V in Cleveland, and And why didn't I take that opportunity to do that? They had offered full scholarship and everything, and that's that one decision in my life that I contemplate like it could have changed everything. But I had hope and I had faith that this was the one. This was the one girl, and it worked out for 15 years, I suppose. 15 years of of everything being okay. And I really don't know. I look back sometimes and was it everything okay, or was I drunken and delusional for most of part of those 15 years? That is so cool. And I had faith. I had a lot of faith. I was born a Christian, and all my life they told, "Oh, just get married, man. It's, have faith in that. You'll be the winner." And I mean, look at your mom and dad. They would say my mom and dad were one of those few people in life that were married up to the day they died. Not that they didn't go through. My mom ran off to California with the bug guy, the bug spray salesman, and didn't come home for a few years. And you go through those things in marriage, and that would usually end a marriage. But my father loved her dearly and took her back, and for her punishment, he made her go to work. My father was a Christian guy. He was an Irish Catholic, and he believed that if he'd get a divorce, he would go to hell. So there's those two sides of his religion that were diametrically opposed. They're telling you on one side that this is the way to go, this is the work. You could be like Joseph, and Mary, and you were going to be like Joseph. And don't wonder why she got pregnant. I said there's two possibilities how Mary got pregnant. One, she was raped, and the other was she was screwing around. And Joseph was like, "Oh no, man, she was raped by God." You could believe that too, and believe the Virgin Mary was just led straight away, and that's what my father believed, that she had no agency. So when she did that, she was led away by the devil, and he claimed victory at the end of that by bringing her back to the Catholic faith, and then put her into a situation where she had to work now. It was so absurd. My childhood was pretty absurd. And if I ever talk about it, just tell me, "Shut up, Joe. Don't talk about your childhood. It's fucking depressing." It was based on 100% Christian faith and hope. and that's life, and that's what I was born into. And but yeah, my father made that work. He made it work at all costs. But he was a good guy. I liked my father, and he'd come home and throw the baseball with me when he had time. And most of the time after that, he was just come home and lethargically crushed and pass out in a chair and cry himself to sleep. But that's such his life. And he had that faith that was going to work out. I don't know if he ever did the stats on that, and I don't even think they put out stats. I think the first time I ever seen stats on marriage and divorce that truly affected real stats, and they've even made the real stats, they've even they ambiguified the real stats. Now they made them into written stats, and I can tell you exactly why, because all the stats that are on divorce and marriage and all that thing goes through the Department of Female Affairs. You didn't know we had a Department of Female Affairs, and now you know. You talk to Warren, what's his name? The old guy that he has a small area in that department of the Department of Men and Boys, but it's just a small little room that they probably give him a closet. And and it has to go through that. So anything you see now, you have to disambiguate the writing on it, and there needed to be words with the numbers. And someone said, "Hey, what we need to do is we need to have words with these numbers, so we can ambiguate them with ifs and and buts and whens and wheres and hows and all those things, and they just can't be just, this is the number and get used to it." So hope fails in the presence of statistics, and what hope is very ambiguous. But the guys have a lot of it, and I think it's a really good question, the human equation of deleted message from Pocket Aces. Let me see what that was. Oops, let me see what was said. Who deleted Corey Steele? So, okay, I'm not even going to worry about it. I don't watch the chat. Corey Steele was timed out. I wanted to see what message was deleted. Christian guys are cool. Christian guys are cool. I suppose there can be cool. I can't remember a cool Christian. Would be who would be a good example of a cool Christian? I think they usually generally get the label of dorks. They pretty much got it. Quick hammer tonight. Yeah, on the quick hammer, Joey. But we're talking about hope and their faith, and hope is a big part of faith. You're putting that thing in there, that you have some desires, and desire. I always talk about, that's what happens with the female. You have some desires for a female, and you want that desire to go into some real things. You want to have that around all the time, and then you get you have almost a tenacious addiction to that after a while. We talked a little bit about addiction and addiction in marriage and everything, and that, and why it happens, and what chemicals are involved in that and everything. And you guys know all that stuff, but we still see the guys come in and they have faith that and hope and faith go together hand in hand, and that they're going to have highly probable outcomes on that. There's religious faith and hope, and I don't think that has much to do with this planet that we work on, that everything's entropy and everything's falling apart, and everything's just wearing away. Everything in life is wear, and it's entropy, and it's easily disposable, and that's what men become, is they become easily disposable as they wear their bodies out. I see a lot of people do the thing about hope too, and they're looking at this sense of the future, and things aren't going their ways, and then like, oh, this too will pass and something good will emerge. or at least it's just going to bring you back to square one, where it's not that bad. There's pre-intentional hope that something good's going to emerge from well, after your radical hope has declined, and you're sitting there going, oh man, this really sucks. And then you start making excuses with this pre-intentions that okay, with something good's going to emerge, or this too will pass, and we just have to work through it, and those good things. They don't make very good prepositional statements. If hope was P, and what are the possibilities of F? Failure. What are the possibilities of hope is P? What is F? What is what is the logistical breakdown of all those things? And you can have fundamental hope, which is just kind of a basic hope that most people have that, it's more like bowling. I'm going to hit the ball down the lane, put best spin on it I can, put it in between the lines that I can, and just have some kind of fundamental hope that it hits right between those two pins in the front. And that doesn't always happen given the conditions of the lane, the oil, the dryness of it, your ball, uh, how fast you're throwing it, your speed, and everything. It gets a little more complex. I always thought the best bowlers were the guys that they just really didn't care. They're at least fun to be around because there was going to be beer and they weren't going to take it all that. They weren't going to take it to heart if they didn't hit it. They know that the possibilities of it happening uh, were were based on a lot of hope, and we can look at life that way, and we can give it all kinds of equations, and we can try to figure it out whether this thing marriage is going to work, or whether even you know being a single guy, does that really work on? Because yeah, I have hope that we do it too as Mgtows. I have hope that I'm making the best decision for myself, and I weighed up all the factors and I put the risk factors in there. Is hope weighed up? If if hope is the P, then the risk was the R, so I got P to R equals what? I don't know. That doesn't seem like it's going to run to a true. It just seems all kind of ambiguous to me, and I can't tell the future. I wish I could. As I get older, I can pretty much go, oh, oh, I know what's going to happen in that. I'm just waiting on the Mgtow bench eating some popcorn thinking, oh, I know what's happening over there. This is going to be funny. If I see a bunch of kids, like I said, if I see a bunch of kids playing next to a ditch with a creek running through it, I know like sooner or later one of them's getting pushed in that. One of them's going to fall or one of them's going to get pushed in that creek. And that's just the way it is. And I says, hey, you kids shouldn't play over there. Move up this way. And if they don't listen, then I pretty much know what's going to happen with a bunch of kids sooner or later. One of them's going to get dusted up, and one of them's going to end up with a bunch of mud on them and wet. He's going to be mad too. But, that's just life. That's life giving you, that's experience. Experience tells us a lot, and what we don't have when we enter into these halls of our future is we don't have experience. We haven't experienced life. We haven't experienced. We haven't. You really don't want to go out. And I hear this a lot too. Oh, these guys just have to go out and fail, then they'll know. It's not something you really want to do. You're going to, okay, I'm going to go out and fail at this so I know what failure is like. Well, that's an illogical statement. I mean, really, you don't want to fail at it. So I hear these, well, let the kids be. Let the kids be and let them make that mind up, and they might just need to go out there and fail at that. So with religion and with the good intentions of our government and everything, they're saying this is the chosen path that should work out if you do everything exactly right and you make the best decisions you can. And then we see that coming to Mgtow, that whole thing where it's like you made a bad decision about the girl you picked. And then I think back at the one I picked. She was French. She was lovely. She was a lovely girl. She was everything. She was pretending to be everything I ever wanted in life. And them things change. 15 years of marriage, you change as people. You change physically, you change mentally, and sometimes even physical characteristics will change. I watched her eyes go from this pretty soft color brown to pure black and evil with her heart too, and it was a disturbing scene, and I couldn't have foretold it at the moment I made those decisions. I weighed up everything and said, "Well, yeah," and every guy does this, and it wasn't a bad decision. It was a decision based on faulty information, and I've talked about faulty information, how you're going to get faulty information, and that was a decision based on faulty information. How was I supposed to know? Hey, do you know when someone's lying to you all the time? It's like, hey, man, I seem to have lost my baseball over. And he goes, well, your baseball's over in those bushes. And he walks away. You're over there searching in the bushes. And he was just lying. Did you know that? Did you know that was going to happen? No, people are dicks, you know? People are evil, and they do things, and they tell you things that generally aren't true. And sometimes they just get off on lying. How's that chat going, Joey? Is everything going okay in the chat? Uh, wow, Joe. Thank you. 10% no. Yeah, you weigh up those. You got about a 10% chance of being that guy. I think it's 8% if you got about a 8% chance of being that guy. Them aren't good stats, but a lot of these guys go into this with hope. And and I was just wondering, today I tried to do a little reading on it. I was reading The Infinite Jest, and I watched a couple movies, and I think Captain Picard, he just rang it up when it was the new Picard, and he said, face hope when they weighed up against odds is they can't live in the same room, and that's what we see here in Mgtow. I thought, what a genius statement. What a genius statement he had just made, because that's what I see. I see people hoping. And I want to learn more about hope, and I want to learn more about that faith and what it is, and how to quantify it. You seem to have to weigh up hope against any risk, but hope is something that's kind of momentarily in the future, where you're going to have such faith in yourself that you can easily weave through or dissect or jump over or negotiate any of life's pitfalls. And like I told my father, his wife, my mother. I think it was my mother. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't his son. I don't know. Yeah, but he just stuck with it and had faith in that the whole way down. I don't know if I could have that kind of faith. I'm not him, and he disregarded all risk with blatant abandonment. Oh, view deleted message. Oops. I don't know why that keeps happening. Who's the UK troll? I don't know. Yeah, but you can have a risk-free life. That's what we talk about in here. You can have a risk-free life in Mgtow. You weigh up all the things. You say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll listen to the experience and the hope of the guy and strength, and pretty much the hope of the men that I've been around. Because then if you listen to the guys that have been around Mgtow, they're going to tell you those stories of risk, and that's experience. What have I have experienced in life? I can now look around and say that all my brothers have gotten a divorce. I can say most of the people, I know one guy that stayed through, and he went totally, he flipped out and went out of his mind at one point. And the only reason he's probably still married is because he doesn't have much of a consciousness anymore of life. He's, as for that guy, Rick, yeah, that guy got divorced. All three of my brothers, my sisters, both my sisters. I don't think there hasn't been a successful marriage in my extended family, any of my brother's extended family. That's yeah. So the stats of 92%. I don't know anybody nowadays that's made it down, and my experience in life is that's going to fail. Now we should quantify these things, and that I guess that would be the Q, the quantified fact against the P, which is hope, and weighed up against your faith and the quantified facts. It still doesn't work out to a true, and the quantified facts is going to be is false. That doesn't work out to be that way. It's you're deluding yourself. We come up with a million different analogies on how men worked at that final fictionalism into their head, and are going to get this idea that, damn it, this is what I'm going to do. And then and that's all based on that hope, that false hope, that and faulty information that people are giving you. And that's usually where that's where you're going to fail. You're going to fail. I said I never made a mistake in my life unless I was fed some faulty information. That's where most guys are going to fail, because we are rational beings. And being an electrician, if I'm looking at it and okay, that goes there, that's the positive, the negative, there's the switch, and I'll run a square D or an Allen Bradley against that, and boom, and a lot of times it did go boom. Where'd that go wrong? I had one blow up in my face. I was running a reversing switch with a 440. I don't know if you ever ran a reversing switch while you're in a reversing switch with a 440. That's a complex job. And something went wrong, and it just blew up right in my face. It was like, them tabs in there, if those tabs, they wear out, if the spring tabs, they pop into place. If those tabs wear out before one goes off the other, boom, it's quite an explosion. And didn't see that coming. Yeah, I wish I could have seen that. We often had to rework old or cannibalize, we call it cannibalize old machines, and take the valuable parts off of them and use them. But you want new parts, there was a risk factor involved with that. And that's what life is too. I guess you're just cannibalizing what's coming at you as you go, and you're using the good parts, and you're well, this is a good part. But like I said, life has entropy involved with it. You can look back there, see what they did back there with entropy. And sometimes you can make the best decision that you could possibly make at that point in your life. It's going to change. Things are going to change. People's decisions are going to change. People are going to turn. And that seems to be it. I've gone on 45 minutes. Where is that, Joe? Oh, back there. That's the steel mill, and that's the steel mill up on the lake in Lorain, Ohio. The river's back there. That's what they don't want you to see. And when they put a steel mill in, all that slag runs for miles. And this thing covers half our town, and now it's closed, and that's what we have. Half a town full of a closed up old rusting steel mill where you can see nothing grows. They've been telling us for 20 years now that it's going to open up, and it only employs 300 guys in there now. And that's U.S. Steel came in, and they employ 300 guys to run small things. And some of the, mostly it's maintenance now, because that thing runs about 1.5 miles long. And Mostly it's maintenance, and they keep so every year, and we're going to hear it. I'll show you it, Joey, when it comes up. Every year, the political guys are. 4 years ago, Donald Trump came through and said, "We're going to open that mill up. Just vote for me," and it's still closed. just just vote for me. And then before that, Barack Obama came through and we're going to open that mill up and get you guys jobs and working, and it's still closed. And I think before Barack and right around Billy, and between Billy and George, it was open and employing 3,000 guys in there. But now they left us with a brownfield and a rusty. They say it would take so many millions and millions of dollars just to reline ladles and do that, and maintenance would have to be like, you've had things rusting in there for 20 years, and it's just not going to work. No oil for 20 years. The background, yeah, it's a Mars there. No, that's a real place. I took that picture. You know what I was going to do? I was down there, and there's security that roams around these things, and I was taking pictures so I could show the world what they left us. And I had a little bunny rabbit. It was Dougie's humping buddy. Dougie buried a humping buddy outside, and I put it up against the background, and I take a picture with the bunny rabbit, the stuffed animal, for just because it was sad. And and the guard came around, and there's an old 200-year-old gravestones that are right up from there, and right down the street is the end of the Oberlin extension, and where the slaves used to ship off. And I always told you I was going to do Juneteenth. As soon as Juneteenth comes up, I'll go down to the Oberlin extension down there and show you this place where they still have all the historical stuff. That's where they took off across to Canada, across the lake in the boats. And a lot of slaves ended up around the Oberlin too. Oberlin, not into Cleveland, but hiding around there. That was the natural path, up through the portage areas and up from the Ohio River. You had to cross the Ohio River and then come up through Portage, because John Brown and President Grant was from Portage, and they had a lot of safe harbor. You followed the Black River up to Lorain, and but that's where that is, and that's where. Oh yeah, and who was that? She writes that famous book about the bluest eye, when she talks about the steel mill. There it is, right there. That's the steel mill and the bluest eye. That horrible place that's taken so many men. So many promises and dreams and hopes were built around that. And you look at my town now, and it's desolate, and it looks like tumbleweeds should just blow through it. And Toni Morrison talked about, like, will it always be like that? And no, we placed a lot of hope and faith in people, and it's, someone should write a book about Lorraine, the bluest eye too, about the bigotry that's, about maybe they can use like a little white boy growing up in this town nowadays and follow his story of the horror through the, Lorraine. And yeah, that would make a great book. The bluest eye too, because there's the steel mill right back there. There's a lake that sits over there that they don't want no one to see too, that they pump the water up through, and it's just a desolate, it's just stinking water that they dumped into the river, and it poisons everything. Like, you can see nothing. But I can show you this, that the park system's trying to fix it. On one side, there's this. On the other side, there's a nice little bike path that I go down. And they put trees in on one side, and it looks rather funny. It just stops and dies. Everything dies when you enter Lorraine. I think that's like all my dreams too. Jesus. But it's not so dissimilar to what happens in most cities and most towns nowadays. Most places have one of those, and then the people we put our faith and our hope and all of our hopes into, they all betrayed us. And I guess marriage is a lot like that steel mill back there. That's why I put it up there. There was some equation I did in my head that it lasts so long, and then it dies, and you're left with the wreckage and the Mars like the Mars like landscape that they will leave you. That's all the slag, by the way, piles and piles and piles, 100 years of slag. There is one guy that makes money off of that. He's got a magnet. He takes big magnets and he takes the steel out of the slag, and then he sells that steel back at probably $40 a ton. I can't remember what he gets for it. And but he's like the lawyers in the divorce and weddings and all that. There's somebody that makes money off of people's despair. And the more he works, I guess the harder he works, the more we'll reclaim the more we'll reclaim pieces of this from the world, and we can plant trees and plant grass on it sooner or later, I suppose. But yeah, there are people, lawyers, divorce lawyers. They just make they're just making a money out of people's despair, giving you that old 50-50. 50-50, yeah. Take a chance. Take a chance. Take a chance. Would you would you bet your life on a 50-50 proposition? It's like a roll of a dice. That's not even 50-50. If a red or a black, it's like it's going to come out red or black. It comes out black, you win. It comes out red, you lose. Would you bet your life on that? No, I don't think I would. And the gamblers, that 92% divorce rate, pretty much. That's a pretty losing proposition. But all these guys, they run in with hope. Hope, false hope. Because we've ever been lied to. Because people sheltered him from the truth. You can't tell a kid, hey, what are you going to tell a kid? That kid, be reasonable, be logical, be rational. Thanks a lot, Joey. Thanks a lot, Arms of Thor. I could always use the money. My knee has betrayed me in life, and I've been off of work for the last almost year, coming up on a year now. And yeah, it's been hard. But hope, that's what we see. I see all that hope. And I wonder, I should do a philosophical study. I wonder if I can get into that $530,000 they just gave out at, I can't remember, the Stanford University, some university, about what is philosophical hope. And it's a good question because no one can really answer it. And faith, even religious faith, balances on that hope that, you put faith in something, you hope you hope you made a good decision. You didn't waste your whole life doing something that was irrational. I mean, you weighed it up and you considered things, and you thought you were the guy to do that. You looked at yourself, you did an introspection. Am I the guy to do that job? Can I do that job? Do I want to take on those things? Am I tenacious enough? Was that? I can't remember the other word. We used to call it intrepidatious. We used to call this boy. He's a little bit intrepidatious, isn't he? We used to say that about the kid up the street. He would walk around with a butterfly net all the time. And he just had a queer mannerism about him. We were like, that boy's a little bit not right. He ended up doing well in life. I will tell you that story about Craig. You'll know him right away. He's very famous now. And but Craig, yeah, Craig was one of my favorite people. He was such a dork. He was. But he did well in life after that. But he wasn't trepidatious. Um, he had a lot of faith about life. He had faith in this one skill that he had, and I won't tell you what skill it was. And he made very well. He made a good living on it, but he knew. And that's a lot of times in life. We talk about that with putting your faith or hope in something that you don't really believe you can do, or you believe you can learn it. And that's what you're saying when you involve yourself with marriage and you involve yourself, you believe that you can learn this thing and do it right. And that most of the time that ends with failure. I had faith that I could be a guitarist. I was a pretty good guitarist. I went until my fingers got cut off, and the chips of all my fingers and this hand got cut off, and then I wasn't a good guitarist anymore. And I often think that I could still do it. I sit there, play for hours and hours a day, and thinking that I could do it. No, I can't do that no more. But that's with some of the life's little things that are going to come, and there's going to be obstacles, and things are going to happen that you didn't count on, and we all put those faith but some people, they have this skill, in life that's outstanding. And you could put your faith as if you could see it. I look at Stuart Hunkler, and I say, oh, that boy's got a skill. And if he put his faith in that skill and he started printing cartoons or whatever he wanted to do, I could say, hey, I would stand behind you because I could see that's an obvious skill. But there is no real skill in marriage unless you're taking on the skill of making the split V happy with a but I always say that's not a skill, man. Amoebas, not amoebas, single cell organisms do that. Monkeys do that. Rabbits do that. Little pea brain cats do that. And that's not a skill. And I suppose they all think they're really good at that too. But it's not a skill that you should lay your future on unless you're going into porn. But I wouldn't lay my future on that. I was reading about a porn star the other day. My buddy brought it up. And he says, whatever happened to that one star from the 70s that did those horrible movies, Debbie Does Dallas and Johnny something, I can't remember his name. We looked him up, and he was on paid. And I thought, well, most porn for men. Women make the money. Men make about 20% of what women make in porn, but there's a pay gap there. Somehow there's a pay gap that they don't consider those things. They don't consider, the things that they don't consider in the pay gap is they don't consider restaurant work or service work, where most of the women make 10 times more than men. Get tips. They don't consider sex workers. They don't consider porn stars, and they don't consider. They just don't consider those things because they can't measure them, and they can't add these things into marriage too. How can you're getting paid half of at least what he's making? How can you measure that in? And they don't. When they do, it's like, how can you do? Okay. You got married, you're not working, you're getting some sort of settlement there, you're getting some sort of pay. What's the pay? The pay is half the electric, half the rent, that's what he's giving you. And then they don't add that into the pay gap either. It's like, so the pay gap would actually outweigh, if you did all those measurements and those addition and those mathematics, I suppose that women actually make more than men. And if they did it the right way, but they don't do it the right way. But it's too funny. Life is too funny. So I've been going on a little bit today, and I was just I just want to weigh that question up of hope. What is philosophical hope, and what it means, and does it mean anything, or is it just a P against the inevitable question of risk weighed against desire? And how would you do that equation, that preposition? How would you make that preposition work out to a true? And that's what we're asking ourselves. Most of us ask that thing. You weigh it up, and how do you measure the metaphysics of that into an actual statistic measurement? It's almost impossible. And but the world will tell you, just go ahead and do that. Make that decision. Make the best decision you can. And if it fails, we'll just say you made a bad decision. Which is true in a certain sense, that you made a bad decision. It's like, but that was a gambler's decision. And gamblers' decisions, I don't know if you can weigh up and say, yeah, I didn't really make it. It looked like it was going to be a winner. That horse looks like it's going to be a winner. And if you guys bet horses, I mean, you just look at its teeth and its mouth and what the conditions on the field is, where its muscles are. Is it a good hind legs, or is it a wet track where it's going to need to power through that? And I made the best decision I could at the time, so I guess I didn't make a bad decision because somebody's got hindsight. The decision inspectors in life have hindsight, and that always hindsight's 100%. For the decision inspectors, that would be a good job. I'm the decision inspector, and you made a bad decision, and I can see that in hindsight, so I'm right 100% of the time. Well, not really, because if you had to make a decision in the moment, that would be different. That wouldn't be such an easy decision. Then you have skin in the game. And we all had skin in the game at one point, and we decided as Mgtows that there's a lot of better decisions. The decision of no. Mgtow is the personification of one word, no. I'm not gonna be forced into that kind of decision in my life. I'm just gonna hang out and try to be groovy and do things my way, and not do those things, and not be. I'm not going to be influenced by metaphysics, hope, and faith. And you think that it's going to work out, and you're a liar. And most people are liars, and or they're still hopeful that theirs are going to work out. How can someone give you advice when they don't even know? They don't have the experience that's necessary to give you advice. So I guess that's my question, my metaphysical question for the day. What the heck is hope? And why are you guys feeding it to Mgtows? And why would it matter to a Mgtow in light of statistics? And why does it matter to these guys coming around that we are a Mgtow? Because we're trying to make the best decision that we can. And most of us, I see, are succeeding in those decisions. And what's it matter to them? But there's always going to be this lifelong argument. I see with blue pill normies and religious people that have that kind of faith. It doesn't come in as corporeal to me. It's incorporeal. It seems like some wishy-washy magic thinking land where I don't know what the outcomes are going to be, really, because I live in a planet where in reality it's entropy, and there's mistakes made, and people are fallible, and women change their minds, and things happen, and man, she gets fat and you get fat, and you don't like the way your attitude is anymore, and you find it like, there's a lot of little things that are going to come in there and they're going to start changing your mind. I don't want to live in that world. I like my world of rationality now. I think most Mgtows like their world of rationality, but we like to ponder the questions like we do today at hope. What is that hope? What am I seeing from that guy? What gives him that hope? Uh, what are the influences that give him that hope? And I wish I can get some of that grant money to ask those questions, but I guess I'm not good enough because I've never been good enough. That's what they're telling me. And you know how I feel about that. From the time I was 6, I haven't been good enough. She told me I haven't been good enough. Everybody says you're calls me names and says you're not good enough, Joe. Try harder. Try harder, Joe. At a certain point, you give up and you just kind of, okay, I'm just gonna do what's best for me and try to take it easy. And all that trying harder has just got me nothing but a backache, and it's got me failure. Because, like we say, it is a rigged system, and how are you gonna beat a rigged system? How are you gonna beat it? Never play pool in somebody else's basement. Never play cards at somebody else's house. Go to the casino where you can at least have fair odds. Uh, that's all I got to talk about. That's all. I'm probably done talking today. I wanted to come by and say hello, tell you where I'm at in life, what I'm thinking about. I guess that's what this is. It's a video blog of my life and the decisions that I have made. You know, at least we have the opportunity. Can you imagine in the future, a million years from now, someone might be sorting through some old stuff that got buried, and they'll come on this 1200 videos of Joe talking about about nihilism, skepticism, and how this planet sucks, and but that's just me, and it doesn't suck that bad anymore. And that's what I wanted to come sometimes and say. It really doesn't suck that bad anymore since I've become a Mgtow and I've started making rational decisions and not weighing up metaphysical desires and needs, and not doing Maslow's hierarchy where I have to introduce other people and executive commands into my life that change the decision process that I would make. I stopped doing that, and life's been working out pretty good. Except for my knee, that's a remnant of what I did before being married, so I can blame it on that. I worked myself half to death up to about 55, and yeah, didn't get good results. So I just want to come share my experience, my strength, and my hope with you all, and I hope that it makes a difference in your life, and introduce that Mgtow and go your own way, and maybe you'll be one of the few guys in this world that experience true serenity and happiness in this life. And what is freedom? Freedom is serenity. And if you get a little happiness with that, I guess you're one of the few in this lifetime that will get to enjoy that. And that's where Mgtow aims to put every one of us men. And that's it. I'm done. I'm done, and I hope you enjoyed my rant. If you don't, well, call me a name. Everybody else does. And but hope you're all having a good Friday night. It is Friday, right? Yeah, it's Friday night. Saturday's tomorrow. And that's it. And most of all, thanks a lot for coming around, and thanks most of all for just being Mgtow. Mgtow.